Hi everybody, welcome back. So today we are going to be making some polymer clay items with the stencils that we made. So my video is a little bit late. I ran into some problems. So just to show you, this was the rose stencil that we did, and it was just a little bit too small. So it took me a total of 2 hours to cut these stencils. And then I had to obviously try and fix the rose situation. So on our leopard print one, it worked, it was great, but the problem is these are so tiny. So let's put that one down. These ones are so tiny that I didn't think you would be able to actually sort of get anything through the holes. So this one came out beautifully. You can see that. That one came out beautifully. We're going to use that. And then I adjusted the roses. I made them bigger, and I've only got the one type of rose there. So we've got that. And then with the leopard print, I actually just cut them in half. Oopsie, we've got one still stuck in there. Let me just... So obviously you've got to make sure you remove all the little bits, otherwise you're going to have blank spots, which is not going to help. So with the leopard print one, I still have my marker, my guide, which is this end piece, and that's going to help me to place it properly, because remembering this is a double layered one. So we have those. Then what I've also done is I've cut little shapes. Now these are going to help me to cut my polymer clay equally into shapes that I want. So this is not necessary, you don't have to do it this, I just prefer it. I've also got some extra pieces of acetate, and that's just going to help me to sort of work with my polymer without it getting stuck to everything. So I cut all of these on my trusty Joy. And what I would suggest, obviously, number one, take the plastic covering off of the acetate first. So if you don't know, your acetate actually has a thin covering. There we are. So take that off first, otherwise you're going to be picking that off and your design. The second thing I would suggest is using some of the adhesive book wrap, as we have before, and stick that onto your mat that way. Then peel the backing off, stick your acetate on top. That's going to make it a lot easier for you to clean your mat. And as you pull your stencil off, the little bits are actually going to get stuck to the mat, and it's going to make it easier for you. So we've been through what could go wrong with your designs. Obviously, if it is too small, too intricate, it might tear. I mean, you could spend 3 hours cutting it. They are reusable, so if you're happy to spend 3 hours cutting it on a lesser setting, cutting it twice, that might work. It didn't work for me. You can see it absolutely wrecked it. So this stencil would still be good as like a large scale project. Unfortunately, I don't need large scale. So today we are going to be working with this polymer clay. It is titanium white. And we've got some pearlescent powders, and then I also want to use the foil paint, which you've seen before. So with this clay, it says 120 to 130 degrees for 30 minutes. That's how long we're going to bake it for. So I did start opening it, as you can see, and then I thought, no, let me just do it with you. So another thing, oh, this is lovely. It's so soft. So another thing I would suggest is, I've got a craft knife, but what I would suggest is having a blade from a craft knife, the big blades. It'll just make it a lot easier for you to deal with it. Wow, this polymer is so nice and soft. I love that. That is super, super soft. Wow. So if your polymer feels hard, all you have to do is kind of play with it in your hands. This one obviously isn't. This is a really nice soft one. You kind of just play with it in your hands and it will soften up a bit. I'm super impressed with this. So I've stolen my daughter's Play-Doh roller. Okay, so what we're gonna do, I actually want this down, but I want the clean side because I don't want my clay, oh, come on, there we are. I don't want my clay to get dirty. Oopsie. And we're just gonna play with this a bit. It's kind of just like Play-Doh, really. I mean, if you can play with Play-Doh, you can play with clay, and same results. So first we're going to test with just a little piece and see if it gets stuck to our stuff. Hey, it actually looks really good. Okay. Oopsie. So now we're going to roll this out. Now we don't want it too flat because obviously we don't want paper thin earrings. If you haven't picked it up yet, we're making earrings. So let's flatten this out a bit. I really like this clay a lot. It is so soft and so easy to work with. Okay, I think that is thin enough, maybe a little too thin. So I think first let's do our pretty, what do you call these things? Roses. So what we're going to do next is we're going to place this polymer, listen to me, we're going to place this acetate on top like that, and we're going to give it a good roll. Now the reason we're giving it a good roll is because we want the stencil to be nicely pushed down on that. We're then going to remove our top layer. Oh, I'm getting, what do you call this, hair on it. And for this one, I want to use this pretty reddish sort of pearlescent rose gold. That's what it's called, rose gold. We're going to dip that, and we're just going to rub. And this is going to get stuck to our clay that is obviously peeking up. Oopsie. Now the nice thing about this is whatever you don't use, so all the offcuts from this, you can actually mix it and it's going to change the color of your clay, which I think is quite nice. You can use it to make pretty colors as well. You could probably use a brush as well. I'm just using my finger. I find it a lot easier. And you kind of do want to like rub it in there. So feel free to rub. Okay. What we should have is a cloth to wipe our finger. Right, now we're going to remove this very carefully. Ah, I love it. Look at how pretty that is. Look at how pretty it is. You can then obviously place your shapes that you want, like so, and that's what these are. These are literally just guards. That's what you're going to use them for, just guards to sort of help you cut better. So remember I said that a flat blade would be better. That's because it's obviously not going to drag your design as you're pulling like that. We very carefully remove this. Oopsie, very carefully. And then we're going to place it, okay, so you can either wipe it or you're going to place it face up next to that. And then you can cut again. Clay is super, super, super soft. Like, it's crazy soft. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to slice down and I'm going to remove the excess around it. Oops. Make sure it's cut properly. I'm so in love. Now this is what I meant by you can obviously mix it and you can then get clay of a different color. And you can add as much of this powder as you want to get sort of the required color. You can also keep these and add black to it. Then we're going to cut the circles are going to be a lot harder to cut. So there we are. Let's remove that. So what you would do to clean it up is just go and sort of tap on your sides. If you have a tool, you can just go and tap the sides, make sure everything is nice and neat as you want it to be. Remember, once it's baked, you can also sand it down. If anyone has tips on removing it, that would be great. I do have a plan. I'm going to stick this in the freezer or in the fridge to get a bit cooler, and then I shall remove it. Okay, let's move on to our next one. So I should go wash my hands. Let me do that. Okay, so while I was off camera, I just got them off the backing and I stuck them in the bowl, and what I've realized is they're way, way, way too thin. Way too thin. So the next one we're going to make a lot thicker, and hopefully we're going to have a better time with that. My poor acetate's quite ruined. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get some plastic, because this will also be easier to remove than acetate. So we're going to take the plastic and put it over our surface like so, and then we're going to fold it under so it's nice and tight. Okay, that's not tight. That will work, I hope. Okay, so for now I'm going to take 2 pieces of our beautiful white. I did wash my hands, so I don't know if I did it well enough, and we're just gonna, so now I want to do our beautiful mandala type pattern, and for that I think I don't know what I want to do. Maybe round earrings. Maybe round. Okay, this feels good. Let's smush it out some. So, remembering this time we don't want it to be too thin. Oh no, that'll have to be the back. We don't want it to be too thin. And we should try not to get colors on it that we don't want. For this one I want to use beautiful blues and greens. I kind of want to have a little mixture of blue and green. Can we all see it? Let me get it out of the glare. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. I love that. So don't throw your stencils away. You can obviously go and wash them and then reuse them. You don't need to throw them away. So now we can actually just trim it. And tap it with our fingers. Remember, our acetate is still on top of this, which is helping me to shape it. We can then remove our acetate, oopsie, oopsie, very gently, or as gently as possible, should I say. And you're kind of just going to tap that back into place. And then I've got earbuds over here. Sorry, not earbuds. Listen to me. I have toothpicks, which I'm just going to make a little hole. And that's where our earring piece is going to go through. And then flip it and pull the clay away from the hole. And sort of flatten it out. There we are. Look how pretty that is. Love that, love it. Okay, and we're going to stick it in our bowl so we can flatten it out in the bowl. Once it's dry, you'll be able to remove it from the bowl, and then we move on to our next. And we're going to place it in our bowl with our others. This we're gonna, so what you can also do with your leftovers, keep them and make what do you call this stuff, make sprinkles. So you just roll it out, and don't do that, oh my goodness. So what you're going to do is you're going to roll it out, and then you not roll it out, make it into like a snake. And oh, I love this. Look at that. Look how beautiful that is. Look at that. So what you'll do is you roll it out like this. And I've done this before. It works great. You roll it out like so, and then you just, okay, obviously once it's super thin, you just cut little strippy things, and that is your sprinkles. You obviously bake them, and they're great for cake toppers, shaker cake toppers. They look really cool. So if you're wondering where I got my sprinkles for my shaker cake topper that I did for my Thea topper, I actually made them myself. And now we have this beautiful green. So I actually have this little bowl of clay. that I use for my shaker toppers, and that's going to go in there ready for me to use next time. So I'm going to go wash my hands, tidy this up, and then we're going to do our last one, which is our layered leopard one. And for this one I want to incorporate some paint. So for that I'm obviously going to have to let it dry a little bit in between, but I'm super excited. Okay, I've tidied up. We're moving on to our last piece that we're going to do, and we're getting our clay ready. So I'm like in two minds about this. I want to do sort of like a lightish brown, very light, with black, and then I want the gold paint. So let's sort of roll this out. I don't need a lot because I'm doing the smaller earrings this time. Just obviously make sure it says, oopsie, my bangle was in there. It says even as possible. That feels good. I think that will be big enough as well. So we're going to start with this one. There's no pieces in there. That's great. Okay, so let's put a very, very light bronze. Oopsie, that's very uneven. Yeah, that's not going to work. We're going to have to go full bronze or no bronze, I guess. Okay, now we need our first stencil. So okay, now this is going to be the black one, and for that I'm actually going to use the black that I got with my resin kit. So if you haven't watched that video, go and have a look, because you get some really pretty powders with the resin kit. Now I'm going to have black hands. That's great though. Then we're going to very carefully remove the stencil and put it aside. We're then going to take our second part of our stencil, and we're going to have to very carefully line this up. So we've got that which was there, and we start, there we are. Look at that. And we're lined up. And we're going to roll it down again. Is it down? Yes, it is. Okay. And for this part, we're going to use our foil paint. And we're just going to very carefully paint this on. Now again, we're going to very carefully remove the stencil. And we're going to leave that to dry. So I'm going to go and wash this and wash my hands. Once that's dry, we're going to be able to cut it. We'll be able to put everything in the oven, and we can finish off our project. Okay, so I've left that to dry for a little bit. It's not completely dry. I don't know if it is going to completely dry on polymer, but we're going to carry on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to place this one, and then I'm going to place this one right next to it. like so. And we're going to push that in a bit. Okay, and with this one I've actually got little holes already there, well, in my pattern. Okay, oopsie. And then we're going to slice this down the middle. And here we have our super cute leopard print earrings. So we're going to remove our top film. Oopsie. And we're going to place this into our bowl with the rest of them. And what I do when it's in the bowl, I just make sure it's nice and flat and straight. And then we're going to do the same for this one. There we are. So we've used our stencils. I'm now going to stick this into the oven. I mean, you can keep this as is. Oopsie. You can cut strips into it. You can do it however you want to. So we're going to stick this in the oven. We're going to use the recommended settings, which is 130 degrees for, I think it was, 30 minutes. So once that's done, then I can show you the results. Okay, so we have baked our clay and it worked perfectly at the recommended time. So please ignore my technique with the clay. I don't profess to be any type of a I don't know, any type of an expert with it. Obviously you are going to get a much better result if you do it with the correct tools, which obviously I didn't. So what we're going to do is we're going to finish this off with some UV resin, and that's just going to give it like a very clean effect. So we gotta just try and, yeah, there we are. We just gotta try and counteract the fact that I did not level it properly. And we don't want to put too much on, because what's going to happen then is it's going to overflow. I love the way these turned out though. So obviously the whole point of this video is to show you the technique with the paint. Yeah, so obviously the whole point is to show you the technique with the paint and the stencils, and also the pearlescent powder. So let's focus on that, and that in itself was a success. I'm very happy with how that turned out. Okay, so these are ready for another coat. And we can actually just move those together. So what I wanted to show you is that if it's not even, if there's things you need to get off, this is a very fine grit sandpaper. You can actually just sand it down, make sure that it's nice and straight the way you want it. So again, the actual technique with the polymer clay needed a lot more work. But I'm really happy with how, like, these ones are way too thin. Those should have been thicker. And these ones are a little bit thick. I mean, it's fine that they're thick. It's not the end of the world. It's just they're also uneven, which I'm not entirely happy about. One of the things I do suggest, obviously, and I did say this in the beginning, is to have instead of using a blade like I used, you have the long flat blade. So it's the blade that actually fits into a craft knife or a Stanley knife. So that is just smoothing it out nicely. You can do it for the back as well. So as these are for me, they're not for anything super special. I'm not going to do the back. I'm just doing these sides quickly. And very quickly, let's talk about what I would have changed. So one of the things I would have changed is to have a bigger a roller. That's going to give you obviously a lot more of an even effect. The other thing I would have changed is to make sure that my hands were clean while I was working with it. So obviously when you apply your, what do you call it, your pearlescent powder, go and wash your hands and then deal with your resin. Because I didn't wash my hands in between, I landed up with a lot of color on the white of my clay. So those are two of the main things I would have changed. Other than that, I'm actually super happy with how this has turned out. Okay, so while you were away, all hell broke loose. I stabbed myself with a craft knife, I messed acetone on my mat, and I broke one of the earrings. So that was great. We are going to see if we can save the final pair of earrings. Well, we did save them, barely. So what we're going to do is we're going to add that onto that one. Do we want it like that? I don't know. I don't think I want it so bright. I like the silver for that. And maybe bronze. So obviously this one is a bust, but you can have a look. It's still pretty. Again, my technique needs a lot of work. But this is not about the technique. This is about, well, it's not about my clay technique. It's about the technique of the stencils. So we open that. Oopsie. Wow, that's actually real pretty. Wow. And there we have our rose earrings. Now some of you may have been able to like paint this. I can't. I'm not that good, to be honest. So this works for me. And there we have it, our two pairs of earrings. The third one would have survived had I not stabbed it and myself. But how cute are those? I love this blue-green. I love it. So again, if you have the correct tools, that would make your life a whole lot easier. Always use the correct tools for the job. But I'd love to see what you experiment and come up with. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you learned something.